Good
This
afternoon,
conference will
everyone.
now be recorded.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Board of Commissioners work session, May 27th, 2020. It starts at 5 o'clock. It's just a little bit past 5 now. Work sessions are an opportunity for board members to discuss issues informally with staff and invited guests. The board encourages members of the public to attend work sessions and to listen to the discussion, but there is generally no opportunity for public comment. Members of the public wishing to address the board are welcome to do so during the board's regularly scheduled meetings. So initially we will have board communications and then we'll, discuss the formal agenda. And our topics tonight are public health update and the John Day Crossing Restoration Project. And I just wanted to make notice that our normal board meeting is at 6, because we know that we have people that are anxious to talk during that meeting. So let's start with the board communication. If we can, we have about 10 minutes. So if we have 2 minutes apiece, and we'll kind of do that as to see who's on board right now. So I see, I'm limited with my older iPad, so I don't see everyone. So I do see Commissioner Thompson. Commissioner Thompson, would you like to start tonight?
Certainly, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, we had a full afternoon of budget interaction, so I'm hopeful that we will all overcome our, I want to call it a brain drain because I feel a little bit depleted, but this business that we're dealing with tonight is important, so I'm sure we'll rise to the occasion. But if we're a little slow, I hope the public will be compassionate with us because we've been dealing with our county budget all afternoon. Other than that, things are still active with the water board down here, and it's still COVID. I mean, it's still COVID all the time. I see a lot of people out and about driving. I see a lot of people out and about walking. Some have masks, most don't. So still concerned about public health and the economy both. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. I see Commissioner Quayle is on the line. Would you like to go next?
No, I don't really have anything to report.
Well, I'm glad that you're here. Thank you. Commissioner Nebaker, would you like to go next?
Sure, thank you. So to echo what Commissioner Thompson said, so this weekend, normally in front of my house, and this is just as I see as I'm walking past my front window, I don't stand there. I saw more bike riders and walkers than I've ever seen on this street over the weekend, and none of them, when I happened to see them, were wearing masks. So that was interesting. I have concerns, and I'm glad that we're going to be hearing from Dr. McNichol, I believe. I have concerns about opening up with the Latino community because they are often the ones who do the work in these lodgings, and I'm very concerned about their welfare and also the spread. They generally don't have good health insurance, and this is a big concern to me. Also, as you probably all know, at the federal level, I believe they passed the HEROES Act, and I don't know. Perhaps Monica or Dawn can get me the information. I don't know if it's actually passed both the House and the Senate, but it does include broadband to rural areas, and I don't know if Oregon is part of this because we do have areas in our county that doesn't have broadband. I would like to have any information that is available to know how, if possible, Clatsop County can access this. Also part of the HEROES Act is community-based health care facilities. And let's see, oh, also on our call on Friday, the Oregon Health Authority can't remember the doctor's name, but he was saying that he was hopeful that all of the state, the counties and the state would move forward in a unified way. I would like to know if that's really happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nebuchadnezzar. Commissioner Webb, are you online?
I am.
Would you like to go, please?
Yeah. What I have to report is that late this morning, I went out to the fairgrounds where the PPE distribution was going on with the Extension Service. And I waited a little while because I wanted them to get a couple of hours under their belt. And they were very, very positive about how many people had come out. And I'm looking forward to finding out when or how what's left over from this PPE shipment is going to be distributed. They were really pleased. They had people from Pacific Seafoods had come out there, and somebody from Bornstein, and they were very, very happy about the high level of seafood processing plant employees singly came out. And they were really high on it, and they were hoping that by the end of the day tomorrow, they would have some numbers for us about all the amount of stuff that they gave out. And I thought that was very promising. It was a beautiful operation, real well handled, quickly, etc. And so I'm looking forward to those numbers. I think they're going to be cool for us to know about. I think that's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Webb. I was going to bring up something about that. I was hoping to go out there this morning, but I wasn't able to make it. Did you happen to notice if there are any small farmers? We have a number of small farmers that are involved in market activities and whatnot. Do you know if they get served?
Yes, in fact, I specifically asked Lindsay Davis about that because, that's one of my big interests. Mm-hmm. And she said they had a good number, that most of the small farmers who came were not getting things for employees because they don't have employees to, by and large. She also said, incidentally, that there had been several fishers who had come out as well. So we'll see a list, which I think will be very helpful. The other thing I was asking, actually both John Lewis and her, was, are we reaching the fisher and farmer communities? And they seem to feel pretty good that we were, that it wasn't, and that's something I'm planning to talk to Kevin Leahy about. But so I'm sorry, I jumped right in on you, Chair.
No, that's fine. That's excellent. I really don't have anything to report today. So thank you, Commissioner Webb. So let's move on to discussing the formal agenda. Anybody have anything they'd like to say about the agenda today? Okay, so we don't have comments about this agenda. Why don't we go ahead? I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Commissioner Thompson. What was your question?
Well, we've got the veteran service officer contract. I think that's going to be a long discussion because it's about a person. I wonder if that's appropriate for an executive session, because it might be considered a personnel discussion, even though it's a contract. And so I didn't have thinking a little slowly. Sorry, I didn't have time to check in with county council or the county manager about that. But I just wanted to check in on that issue, because I want to be sensitive to personnel issues. So it's a question.
Certainly, thank you. Okay, thank you. Maybe we can ask Joanna or Don to reply to that.
Sure. So executive session, as you know, is a session, just for everybody, general knowledge here, an executive session is a session where we discuss things that aren't open to the public. And under state law, we're limited to some very narrow areas. This would not be one of those that would go into executive session because it's not an employment issue with the county. So if he was an employee, then yes, we would be going through the process and the procedures to do it in executive session. But since it's a contract, it's appropriate for an open session, public session.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. Mr. Boone, did you have something you wanted to add?
Sorry about that. I was talking and I didn't unmute myself. So what a common problem. I think that, today this is really a conversation about a service delivery choice. We went through an RFP process, and so we had two different potential providers that responded, and they have different service models. And so, I think Monica will be prepared during the actual meeting to kind of go over what the process was and really what the county is looking for in terms of service and enhanced service to our veterans. And so I think that, as Joanna said, approaching that in the open session is probably the way to go. So.
Okay, thank you both. So any other comments or things about the agenda? If not, let's move into the public health update. We have about 25 minutes for this. Dr. McNichol, are you giving the report today?
Dr. McNichol, I think, is on the phone, but if he's not, then I will also give part of it. So I'm going to give him a couple more seconds to see if he is on.
And I may be moving locations here.
Okay, Mike.
Are you somebody there? Can you hear me now?
This is the mic show.
Okay. I was muted. Okay. Thank you, commissioners. If you can still hear me, we have a total of 41 cases right now. The good news is that 41 of those have recovered fully. They're all, the last 4 are actually recovering at home. What we've been doing is, as you know, our drive-through testing. We've conducted 486 tests just in the last 3 weeks. 245 of those at the driving test and 241 at the fish packing facility. So it's about half and half. We've been able to do about 30 of those tests. 30 of the 45 positive tests were actually collected by us. So we're being very effective in identifying and getting those folks tested, which is both good and bad. And going to Commissioner Nibiker's question about the Latinx population, currently 84% of those cases are Latinx, and 38 of the 45 cases are related to fish processing plants. So that's part of the information you're looking for. We actually have, we still have our, people can still get a drive test through by calling our 503-325-8500 and get them tested. We aren't testing kids. There are some questions about testing kids. We're not going to do anyone underneath the age of 15 because it's not an appropriate place to do pediatrics. It's too risky to have them in the car. They like to wiggle too much, and our nurses are not comfortable doing pediatric nasopharyngeal tests in a car. And so we're actually getting our tests arriving much more quickly. We're getting a 2 to 3 day return on those testing. So on Friday, we pushed out a ton of N95s, masks, surgical masks, and face shields. Anybody who was on our list who had put in a burn rate actually received stuff, including dentists and all kinds of different folks. We were very excited about that. To let you know, our Facebook page has changed. It is now the Clatsop County Public Health Department. You can find that on Facebook. Our other Facebook page was shut down by Facebook because we were so popular they thought it was a robot, unfortunately, and we can't get it back up. So unfortunately, Facebook took us down. So, but we have started over and we have a new one. Let's see what else. So that's pretty much the update I have. I'm willing to take any questions.
Commissioner Nebeker.
Question. Yes, so Mike, my concern is about reopening short-term lodging, and with all of the Latino people that work in short-term lodging. And I know that a lot of them do not have insurance, and I just wondered what you have to say about that potential problem.
Well, I do think it's a problem. It is a big concern that a lot of our work in the folks who work in our hotels, motels, and restaurants in the back of the house are Latinx. And, you know, these families who are intergenerational in these homes may have several members who not only work in the back of a house of a restaurant, but they also maybe work in fish processing, or maybe they have both of those jobs. So their exposure is double to what normal people would be. You know, the question is going to be, is it on these short-term rentals, if the people who are taking care of them, will they be provided enough PPE and enough education to protect themselves with proper sanitation and equipment so that they don't expose themselves?
How will that be monitored? Just on a case by case? If someone gets sick, how does that happen?
So how we would do it is, if someone does get sick and they actually go get tested, then through our contact tracing, with the questionnaires that we do, we try to figure out how they got the, you know, where their contacts were, where they work, that kind of information. Then we can actually figure out through that process about, you know, was it a work-related incident or exposure, or was it from family or a gathering or social? That's sort of how we would follow that up. And then, you know, we would work with them to see if they would be willing to, if they were positive, they need to self-quarantine, and then we would try to convince all their contacts that we could get a hold of that they need to self-quarantine as well for 14 days or one incubation period. So that's how we're going to do that. And actually, we've reached out to the Lower Hispanic, the Lower Columbia Hispanic Council on trying to figure out what the best messages is for folks to try to get tested. How do we work with them to protect themselves and their families and their friends? So we're still developing, you know, better messaging to try to figure out how we can do that.
Okay, thank you. And then the next part of that is, so what happens now? We've been very fortunate. We haven't had any hospitalizations as far as I know. Is that right?
Still correct. Yep.
So what happens if this happens, when some of these folks require hospitalization and they have no way to pay for it? What happens to that?
Well, the hospital systems have to take people if they're in need of hospitalization. The question is going to be is after they've been hospitalized and treated, how they're going to pay for it. So, you know, what we try to do is, if we know some folks, and the hospitals do this as well, is that if they're qualified for OHP, they try to hook them up with OHP at the moment that they're been admitted, so that they can actually have some coverage, or maybe they have coverage through their employer or whatever. And if those don't work, you know, these hospitals still have to care for folks, and hopefully they will be, you know, I really don't have a good answer for them once, if they can't be OHP and the hospital is not going to give them a break on their bill, they may actually end up with a bill.
Can undocumented workers get OHP?
I don't know if they can or not. I would have to defer that question to CPCCO, but I can get back to you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Dr. McNichol?
Actually, I did, Madam Chair, if I may.
Certainly.
Dr. McNichol, we were on that call with the HP, or Jill, I think Jill Quackenbush was, for Clatsop County Health. And it's that tri-county consortium of cooperating hospitals and community volunteers and all kind of health-related people coming together. Margaret Steele from the Nehalem Bay Emergency Volunteer Corps, a retired Kaiser Permanente physician, was saying she expected that the second surge was a matter of when, not if. In Nehalem Bay, they're using their Medical Reserve Corps volunteers to do the contact tracing. and I think there's some thought to using Cannon Beach's Medical Reserve Corps to help with the contact tracing too. But to Commissioner Nebaker's point, they were speaking to the need for bilingual contact tracers. So I just wonder if you had any comment or thought on kind of anticipating what was coming down the road.
Right. So luckily, we've already discussed this. We've actually made requests through organizations saying that we need bilingual, bicultural folks is really what we would need because we have enough English speakers who are contact tracing trained. We have Norma Hernandez, thankfully, on our staff, who is very well known in the Latinx community. She's taken the bulk of the contact tracing of the folks who need to be traced, and she's followed them all the way through from the test result all the way to 14 days. She's done a marvelous job. That's why we have 41 people who are now recovered. She followed every single one of them, and so it was great for her to do that. We also have Lisa Schuyler on staff, who is also bilingual. So we have at least 2 people. We also have some folks in the Sheriff's Department and elsewhere. And I put feelers out to OSU and others that might be hopeful to have that. What we really want to make sure is we pick somebody who has not only the bilingual piece, but also the cultural piece. Because it's not so much if you know how to speak Spanish, but you got to know how the culture works. And to get that trust built with the Latinx is very important. Otherwise, like I mentioned in the guest editorial, I said you have to have a good memory and you have to be honest. And that honesty piece only comes when you have trust. So we're really trying to figure out how we can build that in. So when we do the contact tracing, if the time comes that we're going to need a bunch of folks, how do we build that up and how do we make that trust already embedded so we won't have to start from there, if that makes sense.
Oh, makes sense. Well done. Well done. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that Ms. Hernandez's videos have been quite popular on the internet.
She's the one who broke our Facebook page. We had 31,000 shares and it broke it.
You've got that much charisma. What can you do? You just got to go forward.
Right. We're like, Norma, you're just too popular. I mean, they got shared nearly around the world. That's why Facebook shut us down. So.
Well, good on you. So thank you. Any other?
Next year in the budget, maybe that can go on the achievements.
Yes, we broke the internet. We'll put that in there.
Thank you.
You and Pluto the dog.
That's right.
Any other comments on the health update? Okay,
Commissioner Webb does.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Commissioner Webb?
Yeah, I just, what is the name again for the new Facebook page?
It's Clatsop County Public Health Department.
Oh, that's
pretty daring, Mike.
Yeah, I know. We got real scary with that one. We just wanted to be as I don't know what happened to the last one, but Facebook thought we were a Russian bot, so they cut us off.
That's just amazing. Okay. Great.
Okay, so any other questions?
Commissioner, this is Don. If Mike doesn't have anything else, or if there's no other questions for Mike, I'd just like to talk a little bit about beach accesses and Friday's special meeting.
Sure, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
So just a little bit about beach access. As your board is aware, we've been closing down both the Delray and the Sunset Beach access between 10 o'clock Friday and noon Monday. And we were doing that to support the requests of the cities who were seeing a lot of weekend traffic, mostly in Gearhart. And at the time, Gearhart had also closed down their 10th Street beach access point. So I just heard that Gearhart has now opened their 10th Street beach access point. And with Seaside and Cannon Beach both being open and they're live with their lodging, I did reach out to Gearhart to find out what their longer term plans were for 10th Street. But it looks like that they're going to be open. So one of the things we're going to have to talk about again is what we do with our 2 beach access points. Last weekend, we had a long line of folks parked along Sunset and Del Rey. And the good thing about having the beach access points open is that that gives them someplace to actually go. And so, and to keep them out of the neighborhood, at least parking in the neighborhood. So I'm just letting you know, I haven't heard back on the definitive on what Gearhart's going to do longer term, but I think that likely the plan is to keep their beach access open. So I'm just giving you kind of a heads up that that issue is still out there.
Hey, Don.
Yes.
I did talk with Mayor Brown today, so I did ask him what had happened with the beach access, and he had told me that some folks took the barricades down on their own and accessed the beach. But he made it sound like he wanted to be in step with the county and be closed during the week, open during the week and closed on the weekend, including this upcoming weekend. So maybe maybe Chad and him need to get together and confer, but he made it sound like it was unintentional that it was open and they wanted it to be closed and they want to be closed this weekend. So that's what I heard from him.
Okay, because our plan was to keep it closed until phase 2 and then have that conversation with the cities. And so we had planned to have ours closed this weekend. So Chad did say he was going to follow up with the mayor. So maybe they have touched base since then. So any other questions about that? So the other issue real quick is Friday. As you know, Gearhart, Warrenton, and Astoria have been having conversations with the county to have a unified approach to the reopening of lodging, which are hotels, motels, short-term rentals, and camping. We've also talked to the state parks and the federal park, meaning CLATSA. And we're all on the same page regarding June 5th as being kind of that date to start. We are the only county that is looking at lodging restrictions as an ongoing feature. Everybody else has opened up lodging or is opening up lodging effective June 1st. So we will be unique out of the 36 counties. But we feel strongly to support the public health, crisis that we're still in, is that we feel that we need to really abide by the governor's framework. And if we're going to do that, we need to wait to open up lodging until the travel restrictions ease. And then we would want to do it in a phased manner. We have gotten some feedback from some of the smaller short-term rentals, and Commissioner Webb and I had a conversation, and we did float an option with the cities about whether or not we wanted to address the small short-term rentals a little bit differently than the 60%, because 60% of 4 isn't very much. And so, meaning if you have a unit that can only have four visitors in it, 60% of 4 means 2. So we have floated that by them, and I'm still waiting to hear from these cities. But right now, what is recommended is that we do 60% for camping, lodging, and short-term rentals. But depending upon where the cities are, we might modify that a little bit to say that if it's a rental that has 5 or less maximum occupancy, they would be able to stay at the maximum occupancy. And then if you're at 6, 7, 8, you'd stay at 6. And then if you're above 9 total occupancy, you would be at 60%. To try to deal with those smaller, homes. So I'm just floating that out. Let you think about it. You can give me your thoughts, but so far, I think that, we did work with the chamber. We've worked with others, and we will see what Friday brings, but I'm sure we'll get public testimony. So, but I do want to share that our approach is going to be unique. So, is there any questions about Friday?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Commissioner Thompson, I saw your hand up.
Oh, baby. Yeah, there are already a lot of questions. So you got to know that I've been hearing a lot from a lot of people who have very much to say about this. So unique is generally speaking okay, but if we don't have a logic and we don't have inspection, I mean, it goes all the way from we're doing everything we should be doing to the letter to the editor that said there's no real inspection. And so how do we assure public safety without adequate inspection of short-term transient occupancy? How do we do that?
Well, I mean, honestly, Commissioner, that's not a role that the county has right now, and that's not a role that between now and June 4th, now and June 5th, and a 21-day phasing period that we would be able to even ramp up to. I mean, it's going to be like all things pandemic, which has been get out guidance, which we have developed guidance, and we will deal with problems as they arise. We'll try to educate as much as we possibly can. But, on top of everything else we do not have the staff to go out and inspect everything. And we just have to be honest about that limitation. But we will do everything we can to share the guidance, to reinforce it. I think a lot of folks have been taking it seriously because they do want, to keep people safe. And like all things, if we hear about a problem, we will search it out and find out what we can do. So,
well, I appreciate that. We've been a complaint-driven system for a long time, and understood that this is a fluke, we hope. On the other hand, when we as a board are looking at our strategic plan and we're thinking about the inspection cycle and the completeness of the inspections on transient occupancy, I would put this in our bucket list of things to consider for public health and safety.
yes, I think that's probably a great place to have that conversation, Commissioner.
Well, this is
Thank you.
Commissioner Quila. I just think that this was born out of. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Commissioner.
So I just think this is born. Okay. This was all generated out of the response to have a coordinated closing. And it's been a coordinated response with Astoria, Warrenton, and Gearhart in order to open in this fashion. And at one point, Seaside and Cannon Beach were in agreement on this plan. So this has been something that has been in the works for a long period of time, and to do something in a more gradual, phased-in approach. I appreciate the county working with the North County on this plan. And then, Seaside and Cannon Beach obviously had some other factors and why they opened up sooner. But I think this was a reasoned and coordinated response over a period of time.
Well, and if I could just say, Commissioner, that part of our uniqueness is that we are regulating it at all. Most of the other counties and cities have just opened it up. And so I think the uniqueness is that we're actually trying to take a little bit more of a phased approach. But I do hear Commissioner Thompson's concern, and what we're going to have to do is just make sure we communicate really well with folks. And we already have a letter that's been drafted to go out to all of the short-term rental licensee holders. And so, we will do everything in our power to put the best foot forward. But in a pandemic, it really requires everybody to do their part. I mean, I can't undersell that, whether it's wearing a mask when they're out in public. It's just we truly need to be doing what we need to be doing. So, and that's for businesses and that's for individuals. So,
Thank you. Very well said. Any other comments on that? Okay, thank you. And so that meeting is going to be to Friday at what time? Noon or
At 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock? Okay, so that'll be a virtual meeting at 2 o'clock. Thank you. Let's move now to Ted's report, the John Day Crossing Restoration Project. Please.
Okay, I just wanted to give you an update as to our project since the intergovernmental agreement was initiated on March 4th. Since then, on the 31st, Crest put together an RFP for the construction of the bridge at John Day, and Bergerson Construction was the low bidder, local contractor. And the funding for this was secured through grants through OWEB, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, NOAA, and BPA. And then we'll have some in-kind work through the county, which will be the road work and paving. This work is set to start July 1st, and their in-water work window, they should be done before September 15th. That's the target. So that's it. That's an update on the bridge. And then as is stated in the summary, this project is to remove a fish barrier and then also provide a safe route that takes away a flood risk from an area there in John Day.
Ted, I know we've been working on this for a number of, when did this whole, from when they decided we needed to do it, how many years has it taken to get to this point?
Quite a few. I actually think it started in 2016.
Yeah.
2016, 17. And it has taken some time to get people on board, for one, in the local areas, and then to secure funding also. It went to the first round of funding and through BPA, and then it didn't score properly for them to get the funding totally through BPA. So then we had to stop and secure funding through other agencies like OWEB and U.S. Fish and Wildlife, NOAA. NOAA, I think, was the biggest contributor.
What was the you said local buy-in? What were some of the concerns of the folks around this project?
Most everybody was for the project. There was just one person adjacent to the area that wasn't really excited about this project at all. They didn't want to cooperate. But the impact to them was really from our access road. In order to get the job, to do the job, we had to build a bypass route that encroached on their property a little bit. And and then the size of the bridge, we kind of narrowed the bridge and its scope so that we wouldn't encroach on that property, which was good in the sense of it was less money for the bridge, but we narrowed the bridge up and shortened it, which for that community, it's a one-lane bridge, but for that community, it will serve just fine.
Well, so you expect to have this done when?
By September 15th. So they'll start July 1.
It depends on how COVID is doing, if we have a party or not, huh?
Yeah, that's for sure. Might have to do it online.
Commissioner Webb has a question, Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Commissioner Webb?
Mm-hmm. Ted, I have kind of a more macro question. How did this project come about? Who What was the instigating organization or whatever?
This project has come about because of the flooding in the area. So the dike that goes across uh, uh, through that estuary was too low. And so about 2, maybe 3 times a year, it would flood, and it was still passable. Sometimes there was debris in the road because of the flooding, but there could be up to 2 feet of water in there on the road. And it made it dangerous for the school bus to go through there. And then also the culverts that were installed many years ago, there used to be a tide gate in there. And so this area didn't really have much water up in that estuary. But that tide gate was removed, and then 2 large 5-foot culverts were put in. And they never did really improve the flooding, for one, because it lets more water in, and it takes it a lot longer to go back out with those pipes. And then it also created a surge of water that really makes it kind of dangerous. So it can, when culverts create whirlpools, because it's vacuuming out with the tide, that can actually damage the culvert and wash the road out over time. And then just the safety factor, you know, if someone fell in the water there, it would be extremely dangerous. So that's
Okay.
kind of the, Max Bigby was very, instrumental in getting this project moving with his concerns over safety.
Okay.
And then we were concerned also with the flooding issue and the school bus.
Do we have any process for identifying places like this in the county?
Yes.
Or do we just have to wait until somebody complains?
No, not necessarily. We go through with fish barriers. We're always having to make those type of improvements. So we know our culvert system pretty well, and the systems that will actually get funded or get some help with funding. But we kind of identify these spots, and that one in particular was probably the worst site of ours as far as flooding is concerned.
Could you be more specific about exactly where this site is?
Okay, so if you head out Highway 30 from Tongue Point, you know where the John Day Bridge is at?
Sure.
Yeah, so just before the John Day Bridge, there's a turnout, and it's John Day Road, and you can circle around. And it's a dead-end road, but there's quite a few people that live out there. And at the end, there's probably, I can't remember how many residences, probably 7 or 8
Okay.
on the other side of that bridge. And still an area that can be developed. So there's possibility for more development, possibly. And then also for logging.
Right.
Mhm.
Well, that was going to be one of my questions. Is there any possibility that a log truck would ever be going over this bridge?
Yes. Uh-huh.
You know why I'm asking that, don't you?
I'm not totally sure.
Tucker Creek Lane.
What's that? Oh, Tucker
Tucker-
Creek Lane. Yeah. Well, that's certainly a route. That Tucker Creek Lane is a total different animal than this little road, but there's timber back there that can be accessed. It's not a route that they would normally use, only if there was a timber harvest there or something. Possibly, I don't know if there's even an access point in the back there, but Tucker Creek's totally different animal. That's the main line.
So Can I just, one more question? The,
One more quick one, Pam.
okay. Do you ever work with any of the watershed councils or with the Soil and Water Conservation District about these places like this?
Yes, we do. And we kind of have putting together a priority list, and Ben Brown is our tech that does most of that work, and him and myself and Terry are going to start. Recently, we've been contacted over that priority list from Watershed Council, so we'll talk to them about that.
Marvelous, marvelous. I'm really pleased you're doing that. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much. I apologize for hurrying you on. It's been a long day, and I thought if we could give everybody about 10 minutes before the next meeting, it might be appreciated. So do we just stay attached and shut off our camera and then come back on? Would that work? Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Ted, for all your hard work. Appreciate it. And we'll see everybody back here at 6.
Okay.
Let's get
conference
started.
will now be recorded.
Okay, it's 6 o'clock for the regular meeting of the Board of Commissioners, May 27th, 2020 meeting. And I'd like to welcome everybody. But first, I would like to ask any member of the public who is logged in to testify to please mute their phone or computer until they are called on. It helps us without a lot of feedback and stuff. So everyone that's not talking should be muted if that's at all possible. And the Board of Commissioners, as the governing body of Clatsop County, all county service districts for which this body so acts, and as the Clatsop County Local Contract Review Board is now meeting in regular session. Teresa, may we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Nebaker?
Here.
Commissioner Webb?
Here.
Commissioner Thompson?
Here.
Commissioner Quila?
Here.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Here. Oh boy. Okay, thank you so much. So I would like to have a motion to approve the agenda.
Chair
Or,
Sullivan,
yes.
I move that the board approve the agenda.
Second, Thompson.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Nebaker and Commissioner Thompson. Does anybody have any comments on that? All right, all those in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I guess with this, we should say if anybody opposes, because we all have to mute and then unmute, don't we? So, okay, any opposed? Okay, hearing none, we will move now into the business for the public. This is thank you, everyone. This is an opportunity for anyone to give a 2-minute presentation about any item on the agenda, except public hearings, or any topic of county concern that is not on the agenda. And because we're doing this by virtual, we're going to ask the clerk of the board to help us out. Clerk of the board, are there any written comments that were sent in from the public?
Yes.
What would you like to do first? Would you like to read the comments, or would you like to go? Is there any members of the public who have registered to speak?
Yes, we have both. So I can read the comments and then I can call on the the speakers.
That sounds very good. Thank you for helping us with that.
So the first comment is from Philip McCurdy. Dear Commissioners, the Veteran Service Officers Program is an essential service for veterans, their spouses, and their children. Mr. Thomas has counseled and guided countless veterans and their families through often complex and confusing benefit applications, providing references to other programs and resources, and assisting with benefit appeals. This position requires a highly qualified and experienced manager advocating for and supporting our veterans in need. Mr. Thomas' qualifications include an accreditation and vetting process through the Department of Veterans Affairs, taken and passed accredited agent exams, passed character assessments, background checks, employment histories, and accreditation intention assessments. Mr. Thomas has also maintained continuing education credits that include updates on veterans benefits law. Mr. Thomas' long history in processing claims, his accredited claims agent status, continuing education, and his assistance through a complex and often confusing process has been an asset to all county veterans. This position is absolutely necessary for the explanation of attendant veteran benefits and in providing an advocate supporting our veterans in need. Do not delete this position. Respectfully submitted, Philip McCurdy, Vietnam veteran. And then,
Thank you.
okay, and then this next one is from Mrs. Patrick Hill. She's a veteran's wife. I really would like this to be read tonight at the meeting. I have heard you are investigating letting community action take over the veterans services. That would be the worst thing you could possibly do for the veterans of Clatsop County. They, community action, have no clue of the military and its workings. It would be like me as a bookkeeper taking over the chief of police duties. Are you people no longer caring for the welfare of your veterans and their needs? You have an outstanding man right now doing the job of several to aid in all ways for the needs of Clatsop County veterans. If you actually go through with this idiocy, you are totally turning your backs on the veterans of Clatsop County, whom are to be honored, not pushed to the side to be serviced by a group of very undereducated in this area. Or excuse me, by a group of very undereducated in military affairs and how to aid your veterans properly. Mr. Thomas puts in countless hours working for the veterans in this area. He puts his heart and soul in helping in every way possible to see their needs are taken care of. Mr. Thomas is also a veteran, not to be discarded. He is a valuable asset and needed in ways words cannot express. The veterans of Clatsop County voters will not stand for this. Mrs. Patrick Hill, a veteran's wife.
Thank you.
So those are the written comments, and then I have a list here of people who are going to speak, and you'll have 2 minutes to speak, and I just need you to state your name and address for the record. First speaker is Luke Thomas.
Hello, my name is Luke Thomas. Good evening, commissioners, and thank you for letting me speak. My address is in 1319 Bailey Lane in Clatsop, Oregon, or Gerhardt, Oregon. I'd like to talk about a little history with the VSOs in this county. Retroactive amounts that were done through fiscal years back to 2010, where there was one VSO. And I also want to note the number of appeals and notices of disagreements, which are better known as NODs. And those numbers are very relevant because the higher the number, the less very good work a veteran service officer did to process a claim. If you process a claim correctly, there's no need to go to the appeals process, which can take a veteran 2 to 5 years before they know the outcome of their claim. So in 2010, there was one VSO and there was a retro of $684,754 with 17 appeals and NODs. Fiscal year 2011, $211,760 and 15 appeals and NODs. In 2012, there were 2 VSOs and a retro of $518,322 and there were 18 appeals and nods. In 2013, there was $506,636 in retro and 7 appeals and nods. In 2014, we changed from 2 BSOs to 1. I took over in October of 2014 for that fiscal year, and the total was $698,989 in retro, and there were 7 appeals and nods. In 2014, I'm now by my, I'm sorry, in 2014 was when we took over, and there was 9 appeals and nods. In 2015, I'm by myself completely for the entire fiscal year, $410,000 and 6 appeals and nods. 2016, $410,229, 3 appeals and nods. In 2017, $637,228, 5 appeals and nods. In 2018, $668,795, 2 appeals and nods. And here we are, fiscal year 2019-2020, and we're blessed with this COVID-19, and that's got everything upside down. So the numbers aren't all in. Things are moving very slow with the VA. I'm not going to get into that, but the amount that I've been able to get so far is $433,000 and only 1 appeal and nod for this fiscal year. And this proves solid cases since my tenure in this job. Does
All right.
does the
Mr.
commission
Thomas.
have any questions?
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Little, I did forward your email on to the board, and I assumed you still wanted to speak.
Mr. Little, can't.
We're not able to hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Clatsop County Board of Commissioners, thank you for letting me speak. My name is Albert Little. I live in Warrington, 91727 Sunnyside Road. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I am here to support the current service officer. I am our post-service officer, and I know how critical it is to do the job right the first time. I cannot process any of these claims legally because I am not certified or have the training to fill out the forms. This is where I refer them to our county service officer. He is trained, must attend a week class every year, and keep up with the changes required to fill out disability forms correctly. Luke Thomas does this in detail by asking the right questions, knows the veteran's language, takes his time with each veteran, and gets all the benefits he may be entitled. An example, I've been out of the service since 1978. I went to him in 2014, 2015 to find out if I could get put into the system, and he spent about 45 minutes asking me what I did in the service, how many more questions. A long story short, within a month and a half, I had my first set of hearing aids from the Veterans Hospital in Portland. What I believe a service officer must do is take care of the veterans and make sure they get their deserved benefits. I have sent members from our posts to see Luke, and they all have been pleased on how quickly their claims were processed. After reading your agenda, I see the service officer is doing a great job in filling his reports and showing how much money is coming back into the community due to his knowledge in processing these claims in a timely manner. As in any organization, there are peaks and valleys in reports. City has them, Elks has them, Moose has them, and so do the veterans. There are transfers in and out of this county, creating this situation where one quarter there may be many to process, and the other quarter, very few. It takes time for the ODVA to process each case, so some carry over to the next quarter.
Thank you, Mr. Little.
You're done.
Okay.
Thank you for your comment. Debbie Little, did you still want to speak?
Yes, thank you. His mic's not working. My name is Debbie Little. I'm a veteran's wife. I live at 91727 Sunnyside Road. I can attest that Luke is a great service officer. He helped my husband be able to hear. That's good, that's bad, but you know, it happens. So I know. I'm also the president of the VFW Fort Stevens Post 10580 Auxiliary. I'm not representing the auxiliary, but as the president, I work with Luke. I have veterans that contact me either by email or on the phone or on the street. I am very confident when I hand them a card that refers them to Luke. I tell them, I give them my card and say, if you have problems with Mr. Thomas, then you give me a call. I don't get calls back. Luke does an excellent job. He was our guest speaker when we had memorial services ceremonies last year. And unfortunately, I mean, I've been the auxiliary president for several years, and not once have I ever worked with anybody from CAC. And I would think that if they were going to do that, they would work with the local Veterans Association. And we're well known because we built a monument in Warrenton. And so we reached out and touched the community all throughout this county. Again, I can't stress how important it is to have a veteran in the position as a veteran service officer, particularly one that has suffered from backlashes from being in the service and being active military in a war. So I give my 100% backing to Luke Thomas. Thank you for the opportunity to talk.
Thank you. Kimberly Wright. Kimberly Wright. Okay, Len Tamburello.
I'm here.
Oh,
Can you hear Kimberly Wright?
Okay,
yeah,
yes.
I'm here.
Kimberly.
Okay, this is Kimberly Wright, and I reside at 910 McCormick Garden Road in Gearhart. I am a retired Sergeant First Class with the United States Army with over 30 years service. I've done 2 wartime deployments, one in Shield Desert Storm, as well as Operation Iraqi Freedom to Iraq. And I retired several years ago, and I entered the VA system in 2005, well, actually 2006, as I got hurt overseas and they medevaced me out. And rather than going to El Paso, Texas, I ended up coming home and dealing with the VA on medical hold because I missed my family, of course, and I didn't want to be in El Paso, Texas for 8 more months when I was missing my family. And so I came back here, and this was in 2006, and I tried to get a hold of a service officer for 6 months. And I finally got a hold of a service officer that wasn't more interested in a van going to Portland. They actually wanted to talk to me about my claim, which was pretty much cut and dry. I had all my medical paperwork ready. I was the perfect person to go to a service officer. And but there wasn't a service officer readily available for me. I ended up going to Tillamook because I heard the service officer down there was great. I'm not slamming any service officers. I'm just stating the fact that it was hard to find one. So I ended up, getting through doing that. Now, up to date, I've been working with Luke Thomas for quite a few years. I am currently, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the American Legion, but I am currently the commander there, as well as a past commander. So I have been heavily involved in the American Legion as well as the VFW for quite a few years. And that's locally here in Seaside, as well as I know, the Littles with the VFW out in Warrenton. And I can say
Thank you, Kimberly. If you want to go ahead and speak for a quick minute left.
Okay, I just wanted to say that Luke Thomas has done a phenomenal job. I see him every Thursday and Friday. he needs the privacy, so he uses the American Legion when we are closed during the day, and he has been exceptionally great. The one thing that I do want to mention, and that is the CCA, even in their mission statement, they state that they they serve low-income residents of Clatsop County since 1984, and our mission is to help people meet housing, food, and other basic living needs. I do not think that veterans should be combined into that unless they're asking for a roof over their head, because the average veteran is looking for what they rightfully and were privileged to have earned, and that is, the VA, allowing their, getting their things. And Luke has been a big part of that for Clatsop County. And,
okay. Thank you so much. We have several speakers. Len Tamburello. Len Tamburello, are you on the line? Okay, Lori Weller.
Nope. You cut me off.
Is Lori Weller on the line?
Nope. I stated, with me, I couldn't find a service officer, and Luke has been at our. She cut me off, so I didn't even get it going.
How about Shane King?
They can't hear me.
Yep. Hello.
Shane King, are you on the line?
Yes. Hello. My name is Shane King. I'm a former paratrooper with the 82nd Airborne Division. 3257 Basic Harrison Seaside.
Mr. King, I'm sorry. Can you start over, please, with your name and address?
Yes. My name is Shane King. I was a paratrooper with the 82nd Airborne Division, and I live at 3257 Bayview Terrace in Seaside, Oregon.
Yeah.
I wanted to participate in the hearing. Hello?
Teresa, may I suggest, before anyone starts speaking, that everyone who is not speaking, if they could mute their phone, that would help the speaker be able to be heard. Because we're getting a lot of feedback. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I wanted to participate in this hearing to advocate for the county to retain Luke Thomas as the Veteran Service Officer instead of changing to a community action agency to provide services for veterans. I'm originally from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I know a larger city requires or has a more complicated system for assessing benefits. I've got multiple disabilities from being a paratrooper and during my service in the Iraq War, and I applied for benefits and services many times in Oklahoma over the course of many years, but I was provided with limited resources and benefits. A big part of the problem was the system. Each time I had applied, I met with a different person, and nothing changed. So when I moved to Oregon and I was introduced to Luke, he reviewed my file, and immediately he saw what had been submitted incorrectly. He worked to change that. He filed all kinds of paperwork, and it changed my life.
Thank you.
What I want to say is that I understand where the larger agencies are needed in larger cities like Tulsa, but Clatsop County doesn't need to sacrifice service because of its size. Luke is extremely knowledgeable. I can't stress how much he's helped me and how much, he immediately went to work and knew what to do. He supports all the veteran groups. He attends their functions and he meets with people in person. The VA system.
Thank you, Mr. King.
The VA system is complicated, and a person can be denied benefits for simple technical reasons. Luke found and corrected all of them things that the Oklahoma agency missed. Also, after being in Oklahoma, I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to go through being evaluated in another state. And the fact that Luke, was one-on-one with me and I only had to deal with him, it really made it possible for me to follow through and get the benefits to change my life. You know, I've read the proposal, and it seems to me
right.
like, oh,
Thank you,
okay.
Mr. King, for your comments. We have other speakers that are going to be speaking. I believe Lynn Tamburello is on the phone, so I'm going to try and unmute everyone and see which caller he is, and then I'll mute everybody else. So, Mr. Tamburello?
Good evening. This is Len Tamburello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Len Tamburello. I live at 1950 Southeast 2nd, and that's in Astoria, Oregon. And thank you for the opportunity to weigh in on this issue. The biggest thing, and I've heard all the testimonials for Luke. Obviously, he's a well-revered and respected man. But I was an active duty Coast Guard captain here at Sector Columbia River. That's where I retired from in 2013. I was able to serve 11 years on active duty in Astoria, and now I've been retired here since 2013. When I retired in 2013, I looked for some help with the very frustrating and very difficult process of the VA. I submitted my claim and I got a 0% on my disability. And then somebody, luckily, told me about Luke, and I called him up in 2017, and 3 years later, all the claim has processed through. And I kind of outlined the length of time I've been in this area for 20 years on active duty and as a retired Coastie. So I've had a lot of interactions with other veterans and retired Coasties, and you know, the overall response from all of them is that Luke does a fantastic job. I've had the opportunity to lead, manage several organizations, and I've always kept it kind of simple. So I would leave this with you, that why fix something that isn't broken? Luke's been in the job for 5.5 years. I've had personal interactions with him, and he was successful for me. So I would say maintain status quo and keep the VSO contract separate to ensure that all veterans get the attention that they deserve, and don't fix something that's not broken. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. How about Taylor Dugan?
This is actually her husband, Carl Dugan.
Oh, okay, Carl Dugan.
My name is Carl Dugan. I live at 90300 Hawkins Lane, Warrenton, Oregon, 97146. I served in Iraq, the spearhead of the surge. I have a Bronze Star with Valor, 4 Army Commendation Medals, 1 with Valor. I fought for 11 years, I tried with the VA to get my disability claim pushed through for about 11 years and didn't have any luck. The VSOs before Luke didn't quite know what to do with me. There's not a lot of records or anything. The first thing that Luke said to me was, "I've been looking for you." He called me up one day and he had heard a lot about me and from a lot of my friends. He called me up and got me going. He said, "You and I need to meet. I know I can help you." And that's what he did. Within 6 months, my claim had gone through, and I owe it all to Luke. Luke saved my life. He helped my family out and got me through. And to lose Luke it'd be detrimental to the veterans of this community. My wife would like to say something as well.
Hi, my name is Taylor Dugan, and I'm a veteran's wife. Before Luke, I just wanted to add this. Before Luke ever contacted Carl, there was a sense of lost hope that you could see on Carl's face and feel in his energy. And since meeting Luke, his hope has been renewed and his life has been 110% different. And Luke has made sure to contact Carl and make him feel included in community events that are going on, things that he would never be interested in on his own. And Luke has been a companion to Carl. He's been a mentor and a helper. He's made me feel involved and let me know how to better support Carl and helped me help him through it. And I think that's really important, the support for the veterans family as well, because I think we're all in this together. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. That is the end of public comment. Commissioner Sullivan.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank all the folks that came and spoke today, and especially I know the board would like to thank them all for their service to our country. So thank you very much. Now let's move on to, and those of you who have not spoken before, normally what we do is people speak, they have a limited time to talk, and then we don't engage in questions. So that's just a normal thing that we do. And now we'll move on with the agenda. And the motion that we'll just continue on with the agenda. So the next thing on the list is the consent calendar. Do we have any a motion to accept this consent calendar?
Madam Chair, I'd move to accept the consent calendar. Commissioner Thompson.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Thompson and Commissioner Webb. Did you second that?
No.
No, who seconded that?
Yeah, Commissioner Nebaker second.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. Do we have any comments or discussion on the consent calendar? Okay, hearing none. Let's have the vote on the consent calendar.
We do that by consensus.
Oh, very good. Do we have anybody opposing the consent calendar? Okay, hearing no objections, the consent calendar has been accepted. We'll now move into the commissioner's liaison reports. Commissioner Webb, would you like to begin tonight?
I have nothing. I have nothing.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Thompson, would you like to go next?
Yes, ma'am. Broadband is big in my mind right now because Representative Mitchell is interested in helping us get broadband more widely dispersed throughout Clatsop County, which is a wonderful thing. I've reached out to not only the people involved in the first call, Chris Tamron from Link Oregon as part of Business Oregon. The county manager was there. There was Deborah from Clatskanie, who's a provider. But I've also reached out to Dave Nyes, who's president of the Sunset Empire Amateur Radio Club. He's a retired ODOT staffer, and he's expert in a variety of communication systems of the electronic sort. So looking at how his expertise both here and, gosh, Morrow, Gillum counties, Dave's very active in stuff. So reached out to him. He's going to come to the next meeting on June 1st, along with the previously listed cast of characters. Also, Michael Hefner, who's the Deputy State Fire Marshal, staff to the State Emergency Response Commission, and also a member of the Oregon Broadband Advisory Committee. So he'll be coming to that. Congresswoman Bonamici's aide, Ellie Mayeda, is coming. I mean, what we're looking to do is to get people who have the real skills with people who have the vision and the responsibility to make something happen. So we're hopeful. I also reached out again to Commissioner Yamamoto. You'll recall he's on this Oregon Broadband Advisory Committee. So looking to get ourselves deeply involved in a way that produces results in terms of more broadband. So that's big. Community Action Team met. We're still looking at how that community action agency that covers the 3-county area deals with Head Start and some housing programs and some other programs. Broadband's essential for that as well. The Health Partners organization, what can I say? still dealing with the healthcare aspects associated with COVID, how community volunteers and public health departments and hospitals, OHA and other state officials all coordinate and communicate, collaborate together so that we have a unified response and we understand what's going on with each other in that regard. I also went to the Cedar meeting, not as the county's representative, because that's Commissioner Quila, but just to listen in and hearing about the efforts to get the businesses functional in a way that's safe. Brian Owen from the Seaside Chamber of Commerce mentioned the fact that businesses who have good communication about customers' need to mask seem to have better results with customers masking. I really see a lot of people going around without masks. Makes me nervous. I wish everybody would mask up in this time when we're not sure what's going to happen going forward as we open up. I want our businesses to be able to be in business, whether it's a brick and mortar storefront or a hotel or a B&B or whatever. Let's still be safe. Let's deal with the health consequences while we reinvigorate the economy. And we're budgeting. We at the county are budgeting. And so we're looking at where does the money come from? How much of it do we have? Where does it go? And what are the results we get for citizens in Clatsop County? So all of those things are going on, as well as just listening to people. The last thing is, in my neighborhood, we still are dealing with water issues. So how do the Special Districts Association of Oregon really provide guidance and support to the special districts like the Water District? Oh, yeah, and the Cannon Beach Rural Fire Protection Board met last night as part of the budget committee, and we looked at that budget. What we see is, how do we get adequate support for community services from the revenues that we have? And fire's an issue, water's also an issue. Looking at the fair price and good representation to have these community-wide discussions. That's my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. I don't know if it's my computer or your computer, kind of got broken up a little bit, but at the end. Can you still hear us? Can you still hear us, Commissioner Thompson? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Commissioner, thank you for your report. Commissioner Quila, would you like to go next?
Sure, I'll follow up on what Commissioner Thompson was reporting. I went to the Cedar meeting, or didn't go to the Cedar meeting. I participated in the Cedar meeting yesterday, and certainly appreciated what Kevin Leahy, Jessica Newhall, of course, David Reed with the Chamber, what all they've been doing over this period of time, and doing all they can to try to help small businesses navigate their way through what has been just a treacherous economic environment. And I was kind of struck by Chris Nemlewell from Fort George, and I think it's Steve Sinkler from the Wine Shack. And, you know, they both focus so much on doing the right thing and being responsible, and it wasn't about the bottom line to them. And I know that this has been a trying a couple months, but they were really invested in doing the right thing for their community, and opening up in a responsible manner, and really changing everything, as many businesses have had to do. I just was impressed by their comments yesterday, and by so many of our local businesses that have been able to, pretty much turn their businesses upside down, and be able to survive in this new age, in this new time. And so we just need to support them as much as possible, and go frequent these restaurants and these retail stores, and support them because they're going to need that help, not just now, but in the months to come. That's all I got.
Can I ask a question of Commissioner Cuela? Is that appropriate?
Is it a quick question?
Is that the issue?
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wondered, I think that Cedar has done a really great job of getting a lot of webinars and information out. I wonder if you know if there have been any special efforts to reach out to the farming community and to the fishing communities.
With Lindsay Davis, and I know you were out there at the fairgrounds today, Commissioner Webb. You know, Lindsay Davis is part of the Chamber of Commerce, and so she's been very in tune with the agricultural community. And I know that Kevin has a lot of strong ties, Kevin Leahy, that is, to the processors and the fishing community. You know, Steve Fick being a very close colleague of his. So, you know, there is, I think, that bridge to both those industries with Cedar and SBDC. I can't speak to the specifics, but I know that they've got the right players involved.
Okay. Thank you.
Well done. It was excellent question and answer. So let's thank you. Let's go on to Commissioner Nebaker now.
Yeah, I joined in a Zoom meeting with the Arts Council of Clatsop County, and they are having the same problems as so many of us. Things are not working as they used to, but they are going ahead and planning tentatively to have the second annual Art Summit, realizing that that may not come through. And that's my report.
Okay, Commissioner Webb with another question. What is that?
I'm sorry. I know that we were all concerned about the issue of the wonderful old farmhouse at the fairgrounds. And I talked to John Lewis today, who told me that they have a buyer for that house, and the only thing they're waiting for is to find someone who can. The house is going to be moved, and someone wants it intact, etc. But the only way they can move it is by water. And so they are looking for some kind of an enterprise that can move it from, I guess, just east of 202, because they've got all the arrangements for moving the house down to the water. They just need a ship, a barge, something to put the house on and take it by water to its final location. And it's not a long trip. It's just that there's no other way to do it. So I gave him the names of, I told him to call Hayek and a few other people like that. And so it looks like it's going to happen. I mean, it looks like we're going to save the house as long as we can find someone to put it on a barge and take it to its new location. So I thought that was pretty groovy. I'm sorry, Commissioner Sullivan.
That's right.
I'll be quiet now.
No, that's all right. That's all right. They can move it to my neighborhood. I'd live in that house.
I know, it's a great house.
One thing when I was before the COVID, I was talking to a neighbor in my neighborhood, and a tree during a storm fell on her house, and she had lived in fear that there would just be a disaster. And it was a fairly good sized tree, but the damage to her house was so slight, really. And we were talking, and I really think the house was over 100 years old, and you can't. Clearly, her house was made of the old growth timber, and that's what this house. I'm sure that house out at the fairgrounds And that timber will not be replaced. So I'm glad that we were able to save that. Excuse me. So I wanted to acknowledge that I was unsuccessful in my reelection bid, and I called Ms. Bangs the next day and congratulated her and let her know that I would be happy to help with the transition. And I would like to thank my supporters and my campaign team. I'm very proud of the hard work that they put in. I'm very proud that we ran an honest and a positive and locally run campaign. And so I take heart at that. I ran to be a county commissioner because I believe in community service, and I believe in local government, and I believe in democracy. And so I'm proud of the time that I've had here. But I'm still the chair, and I will be working through this year. And I hope that we can continue to work together and do a lot of good things for the county. The other thing is, I was talking to a friend the night, it was right around the time of the election, and they said, I didn't know if I should tell you this or not. And what it was is those floods in Michigan. Those are in my hometown. The downtown wasn't hit so much. It was in Gladwin County and then Midland County. But all of those names that you heard on there, those are teams that we played in football. And I know, when I left Michigan in '82, the bumper sticker said the last one out of Michigan shut off the lights. So I know the struggle that the residents of Michigan have had for so many years, and the devastation of these floods just add to the suffering, and it's hard to see. But I bring that up not just because it's newsworthy, but because those dams were privately owned. They were built in the 20s, and they had been cited as being improperly maintained. And for me, with my own self, I have seen the good work that Clatsop County has done. I believe in government, and I believe that if those dams had been maintained by the level of staffing that we have in our county, I think that maybe that disaster would have been avoided. And I'm sure that's going to be taxpayer dollars that'll pick up the pieces from that. I hope the pieces get picked up. Sanford, from my mother said, was pretty much the entire town was destroyed. So, anyways, I just wanted to make note of that, and I look forward to working with all the great staff that I've gotten to know, and we'll move on. So, thank you, Mr. Boone.
Thank you, Chair Sullivan, members of the board. Just a couple of things for me really quickly, and that is we'll be having another budget committee meeting tomorrow from noon until probably around 3 o'clock is what we're estimating. And then we have the special meeting of the Board of Commissioners on Friday to have you consider the reopening strategy for lodging, camping, and short-term rentals. So we will be seeing a lot more of each other in these little boxes. So more to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, County Manager Don Boone. So let's move on to the business agenda. And it looks like we have one item on the agenda today, which is the Veteran Service Officer contract. And Ms. Steele, you, I believe, are going to give the staff report.
Monica, we can't hear you.
There. Okay. Thank you. First, I just want to start off by saying that I appreciate hearing from all of the veterans and the veteran spouses who spoke on behalf of Mr. Thomas, as well as hearing from Mr. Thomas and that the county is appreciative of the work that he's done, both as a VSO officer as well as the service that he provided to our country. So as you know, going out for RFP when we have contracted positions is a common practice. And in fact, in the consent calendar, you just approved 2 contracts for services that we've been receiving for the past 5 and 7 years for banking and auditing services. So this is a common practice just to kind of review what is available to us out there. And so when we started this, we went through the process beginning April 13th. We advertised it, and then we asked that responses be due by May 8th. We heard from 2 providers, those being Mr. Thomas as well as Classic Community Action. So when we were going through this process, our social services coordinator, Lauren Wilson, did a lot of work to just kind of see what are some of the other ways that counties provide these services. And of the 36 counties, there are 4 that go through a contract, and Classic County being one of those. The other 3 contract with nonprofit providers. And so when we were reviewing the submittals, we were trying to evaluate through this process how we could have the greatest reach, understanding that we're doing so with limited resources. And so when we were doing this and we got our response from Classic Community Action, we were delighted to see that they currently also provide services that are provided by a veteran of Classic County. And it's for the housing for those veterans that are in need of housing assistance. And so currently they contract directly with the state to provide that housing. And so they're familiar with working with veterans. And while I understand, that there are a variety of income levels for veterans, there is a population that also utilizes services that Classic Community Action provides. That being said, there are veterans that don't need those services, and it can be perhaps kind of awkward for them trying to go and receive services in a facility that is providing other types of low income opportunities. And so when we were reviewing this, we were trying to figure out how are we going to best reach the greatest number of our veterans within our community, understanding that there is a variety of people out there. And after thorough staff review of these RFPs, we felt that Classic Community Action was going to be able to provide us with an alternative to do that additional outreach. We know that there are concerns regarding the services being provided by a veteran. And so one of the things that's going to be part of this process is that this position needs to be filled by a veteran, because they need to understand the people that they're working with. Much like the current person who's providing the housing assistance is a veteran, will have that same requirement. One other thing that we are looking at when going through this process is what are some other options in regard to where the individual who receives this contract might be able to be housed. And if Classic Community Action is granted the contract, then one of the things that we would be working on with them is a space that perhaps is outside of the normal services that they're providing. When we were going through this, one of the questions that we had was, do you understand that these are not all people that are in need of your services? And they are very understanding of that, and they are very concerned about being able to reach out to all populations of veterans. And so we felt when going through this process that there was a thorough vetting, and that again, we are not trying to discount any of the services that have already been provided. We're just trying to explore other options that again create the greatest amount of reach with the limited resources that we're working with. I would be happy to answer any questions. Yes, Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you, ma'am. So I really appreciated the kind of the crowd that was here tonight to support Luke Thomas. I mean, it's a real testimony to him. I heard 3 concerns voiced, and I just wonder if you could speak to these after I iterate them. They wanted someone who had a shared military experience. I think you've already addressed that. I heard that they want someone who speaks their language, a shared language. I also heard that they want someone who is savvy in the veterans system, because I heard time and again, Luke not only had shared their experience, he spoke their language, but he also knew what to say and how to navigate them through the veterans system. So when you evaluated the options, were those dimensions that you considered in your evaluation?
Yes, and so in regards to the hiring process, Class of Community Action has not yet hired a person. Like I said, we are going to make it a requirement that it is a veteran. And then much like Mr. Thomas had to go through when he became the Veteran Service Officer, is this individual, if they are not already qualified when Class of Community Action is hiring them, they will go through the same training process that Mr. Thomas went through. And they offer those throughout the year. In addition to the annual week-long training that happens in November, they have trainings that will start up as early as July and offered also in August. And so we have spoken with ODVA, because if we do decide to go an alternate route, we want to make sure that we are getting somebody trained and up to speed as early as possible. We have also heard great things in regards to the work that they are currently doing with veterans regarding the housing situation for those veterans who are either homeless or who are close to being homeless. And so I think that I can't speak for veterans because I am not myself a veteran, but I think that every veteran probably has a different language that they're speaking, and they have their own different experiences. And so I can't say that they will speak the exact same language as Mr. Thomas, because I don't know what branch of military they might come from. So, but I feel confident that Class of Community Action and the work that they're already doing with veterans is going to continue to look out in the best interest of the veterans.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Commissioner Webb.
Commissioner Webb?
My question is, it's interesting. I always like it, incidentally, when the staff looks around at what other counties do when we consider things like this. In the 3 counties, in the other 3 counties that that don't actually staff, the contract, what kinds of nonprofit agencies do they contract with?
I can't recall, and perhaps Lauren, if she's on, she can answer. I know that Columbia County, their equivalent of Class of Community Action is the Community Action Team, and that's who does the service, both the housing piece and the VSO piece in Columbia County. And then the same sort of thing down in Marion County, the similar equivalent to a community action team down there. I can't say for certain if that's the same in Benton, but Lauren, are you on?
Yes, in Benton, they actually have a council of governments that provides that service to the county.
That's right. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
So if there aren't any other questions, what would happen with this process is Mr. Thomas has this contract through the end of June 30th. And then what would take place is effective July 1st, Class of Community Action would take over the contract and begin reaching out to all of the current veterans, introducing themselves that are currently in the system, and then working with ODVA, getting the training in place, and then working on the required outreach that the county is looking to have done. The other thing is that we will be having quarterly presentations coming before the board in regards to the performance. Just like any contractor, this is a contract. It's not a permanent change. And so if this is something that doesn't work out, we will continue to explore what our options are. We are understanding of the fact that these veterans don't want to continuously see change. And so we want to be respectful of that, and we want to try and find, again, the best fit. Yes, Commissioner Thompson.
I really appreciate your saying that. What I'm interested in is what will be the feedback gathering component of the contract, because I think we heard loud and clear tonight that there really are great concerns in the community. And so I'd feel more comfortable, as you say, going forward, let's look at how this works, because who knows? So how are we going to gather feedback?
So there's a couple things. One, people can continue to just email their commissioners or county management, but there's something else that the county has been working on that hopefully will be in place in the next few weeks here, and it is a system called Ethics Point. It's started out in regards to being able to have employees be able to report concerns that they might have regarding within the county organization itself, safety issues, ethics issues, fraudulent issues, anything like that. And then it also expands out, and so citizens have an opportunity and contractors have an opportunity. So this would be another outlet that somebody could either report anonymously, or they can report and identify themselves.
So the forestry people call it ground truthing. So this is a way we can do ground truthing for the impact of the change that we're proposing. Is that it?
Yes. Yes, Commissioner Nebeker, or Dawn, I don't know if you want to. Go ahead.
I was just going to say really quickly, I think a lot of it is going to be looking at the performance metrics also, and getting regular reports back to your board. And as part of that, we might want to talk to the vendor about ways that they can solicit feedback from their clients and share it as part of that quarterly report also.
Commissioner Nebeker?
So Mr. Thomas can apply for this position, is that correct?
Through Class of Community Action, yes.
Good. I know that consistency can be, very important. And outreach is critical. And I know that a lot of veterans aren't, they're not geared towards asking for help. So outreach is, I understand, very important. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more comments on this question? I will entertain a motion. Would someone like to make a motion? Commissioner Webb?
Muted.
Can't hear
You're
you.
muted, Commissioner Webb.
I move that the board approve the recommendation to award the Veteran Services Officer Services contract to Clatsop County Community Action and authorize the county manager to execute a contract with a not to exceed amount of $124,120 and any amendments. Incidentally, I think that the name of the organization is not Clatsop County Community Action, but Clatsop Community Action, isn't it?
Yeah, that's an error on our part.
Okay, so noted. Any second of that amendment, please? I mean, that motion.
I'll second the amended motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. So we have a motion in front of us that is the Board of Commissioners, no, that's the wrong one. Approve the recommendation to award the Veteran Services Officers contract to Clatsop Community Action and authorize the county manager to execute a contract with a not to exceed amount of $124,120 and any amendments. Any discussion thereof of the motion?
Commissioner Nebeker?
Yes,
Okay.
I would just like to add, from my own personal experience, how critical this is. That whoever this person is very understands the problems and challenges of veterans. My father was a wounded veteran. He was a prisoner of war in a brutal situation for 1 year. Most veterans do not talk about their experiences. And that's another aspect of the problems with getting them access to services, because they're wounded. So whoever this person is, and I believe Mr. Thomas has a lot of skills, I hope he will apply. But this person needs to have a lot of skills to reach out, to understand, to support. These are very complicated issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Nebeker. Any other comments? Okay, Teresa, could you take a roll call on the vote, please?
Commissioner Nebeker?
Yes.
Commissioner Webb?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Commissioner Quila?
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye. So the motion passes 5-0 that the Board of Commissioners is a recommendation to award the Veteran Services Officer contract to Clatsop Community Action to authorize the county manager to execute a contract with a not to exceed amount of $124,120 and any amendments. So, excuse me, I wanted to thank Luke Thompson for his service to the community and to the veterans, and just thank you for your work. Anything for the good of the order? Okay, hearing none, we will be back tomorrow at noon for the Budget Committee. And we expect that meeting to go to possibly 3, 2.
Forever.
We hope to have.
Three.
Okay.
Maybe
All
we
right.
can
Well,
get
thank you, everybody. I'm sorry.
Oh, I just
Thank you.
hopefully we can finish at 2.
Okay. All right.